Hello everyone, thank you very much for signing in and watching my live stream. I'm Mr. Matt and this is Dr. Tot. Dr. Tot, would you like a cookie to start class? Very good. And welcome to SAT, ACT Prep. This is a writing skills day, so we're going to be talking about adjectives, adjective-adverb confusion. So adjectives are words that are used to modify nouns. Adverbs are words that modify verbs, adverbs, or other adjectives as well. So let me share my screen with you. Just a reminder, these are live sessions, of course, so there is a little bit of a delay, but I'll try and mitigate that as much as possible. The document for today's lesson is available on Certified Learning Center's website. The link is going to be in the description. I've also included it in the live chat feed, so let me know if you have any questions or trouble finding it. If you want to work on hard copy, I would recommend printing that out so you don't have to rewrite all of the sentences. Just make sure that you're looking at the document that has the reference number 1704-4. That way you know that you're looking at the right document, that you're in the right place. Otherwise, let's go ahead and get started. So as I said before, adjectives modify nouns. They answer the question, what, about a specific person, place, or thing. So for example, we have three sentences here. That is a nice car. Those are new shoes. That dress is beautiful. So in these sentences, nice, new, and beautiful are all adjectives because they're modifying the nouns, car, shoes, and dress. So adjectives modify nouns only. Adverbs modify adjectives, verbs, and other adverbs. So adverbs answer the question how. So how is the mean? How new are the shoes? Or what are how are the shoes? Or how was the dress made? So that car drives nicely. Those are newly purchased shoes. Or the dress was beautifully constructed. Notice that adverbs usually have the ly, or if the word already ends in a y, it has an ily ending. So you can usually tell adverbs apart because of that last suffix. So adjectives come in three different degrees. We have the positive degree, the comparative degree, and the superlative degree. Positive degree is just the standard form of the adjective that's just describing one noun. So for example, fast, late, sweet, blue. Those are all adjectives that would describe in the positive degree. They're all adjectives in the positive degree. The comparative degree compares one noun to another noun. So for example, and it has the ER ending. So we have faster, later, sweeter, bluer. So that car is fast, but this other car is faster. That berry is blue, but this berry is bluer. So on and so forth. And then lastly, we have the superlative degree. So the superlative degree compares more than two nouns to each other. And that has the EST, or if it ends in a Y, an IEST suffix. So for example, fastest, latest, sweetest, bluest. So this car might be fast, that car over there might be faster than the first car, but this third car is the fastest of them all. So if you're using more than two, if you're comparing more than two items with each other, or all with each other, then you need to use the superlative. So you wouldn't say chocolate or vanilla. Which is your most favorite flavor, right? So you'd read, or what is your most favorite? So you're only comparing one to the other. So which one is more favorite, right? So the degrees are going to be important in understanding. We also have degrees for adverbs, but before we get to that, I just want to point out a few irregularities. So English is full of exceptions and irregularities, and you just have to it's just really a matter of memorization and practice. So beware of these combinations because they don't go in that linear EST ending format. So good, better, best. So this one is good, that one is better, but this one over here is the best of them all. That's irregular. Bad, worse, and worst. So that one's tricky because notice that worst is it's a spelling change from a E to a T. So it doesn't really make any kind of systematic sense. But this one's bad, that one is worse than the first one, but this one over here is the worst of all three. Much, more, and most, little, less, least, far and farther versus further. So farther with an A has to deal with actual physical distance. Further has to do with conceptual distance. So I'm not going to take this argument any further with a U. But if we drive any farther with an A, I might get road sick. So if I'm talking about a physical distance, then you're using the A, the word spelled with an A. If you're talking about conceptual distance or conceptual progression, then you're using the word that is spelled with a U. So you have farther, further, and then farthest and furthest. And then just a little note at the bottom, just know that fast is somewhat irregular in itself. It can act as an adjective or an adverb, and when it acts as an adverb, it does not have an ly ending. There's no such word as fastly. So that car is fast. That's acting as an adjective, or you could say that car drives fast. You wouldn't say that car drives fastly. So that's another little bit that can be confusing. So that's an irregular word, and you want to just watch out for that. If you have any questions, then please let me know. Now we also have degrees of adverbs, and I do apologize, there's a typo that carried through here, and I'm going to correct it when we get to it. But the positive form of an adverb, still just describing how one noun does something. So carefully, quickly, quietly, fundamentally. So he carefully picked up the glass of water. He quickly ran down the street. Those are all adverbs in the positive form. The comparative degree of adjectives is comparing how one noun does something to another noun doing something. And this is the part that I need to correct. Now you convert not by adding the ER, that's for the adjectives. You convert by adding in the word more. And for the superlative, you convert by adding the word most. So I just need to make that correction. I do apologize. Make sure that you cross out that phrase and add in more or most. So for example, Greg, let's say Greg picked up the glass carefully, but Diane picked up the glass more carefully than Greg. However, Roxanne picked up the glass most carefully of them all. So you have the comparative, you construct it by adding the word more. You don't add a suffix, you don't change the ending like you do in an adjective, adding an ER or an EST. Here you just add the word more or you add the word most if you're talking about the superlative form. So if you're comparing more than two nouns, how more than two nouns do something, then you're going to be using the superlative degree of an adverb. And like I said, that's constructed using the word most. So this model operates quietly. This newer model operates more quietly, but the latest model operates most quietly of them all. Okay, so you're just adding in more or most. Okay, now this is where it gets kind of tricky. With adjective and adverb choice, you really need to beware of what's called linking verbs. So linking verbs are the verbs that pertain to the senses, and they can be really, really misleading. There's an old English phrase, actually my 4th grade English teacher taught me this, and it's a phrase that might not make much sense at first, but it goes like this: roses don't have noses. And that sounds really strange, but it goes to describe the adjective-adverb confusion, or helps describe it. So with linking verbs, you have to be careful about whether you're modifying the noun or whether you're modifying the action, the verb. And you can really examine the prepositions that are used to help you along with this. Linking verbs describe the senses and cause a lot of confusion when constructing sentences. You must examine the sentence to understand whether the noun or the verb is being modified. If the word is intended to modify a noun, a person, place, or thing, then use an adjective. If the word is intended to modify a verb or an action, then use an adverb with the ly ending. So this makes most sense when we just look at a few examples. And actually, linking verbs can cause some really, really wonky sentences. When you actually understand the differences between the meanings, then you'll get what I'm saying, that it actually makes some pretty funny sounding sentences when you read them carefully. So, for example, the first one there, it's incorrect, the version, the dress looks beautifully. So the verb looks is a linking verb, and here, when we use the adjective beautifully, use the adverb, not the adjective, beautifully is an adverb, it's modifying the action look. So if we're modifying the action to look, that's implying that the dress has eyes and that the dress looks beautifully. Just like with the phrase that I started with, roses don't have noses. So roses don't smell sweetly, roses smell sweet. Because if roses smelled sweetly, then it would be implying that roses have noses and they're kind of like smelling the air in a polite, sweet manner. Not that their overall aroma, the noun of roses, it's not describing their overall physical state. So here when we say, when they say the dress looks beautifully, that's implying that the dress has eyes and is looking in a beautiful way. The correct manner there is going to be the dress looks beautiful, because using the adjective beautiful rather than the adverb beautifully is now modifying the noun dress rather than the action look. The third sentence there, he hears good at 80 years of age. So here we're modifying, good here needs to be modifying the verb hears. So we need to say he hears well at 80 years of age. Okay, we're not modifying him, we're modifying the verb hear, his state, his ability to hear. So we need the adverb well here. And then this is a really common mistake people make a lot. So I feel badly for him versus I feel bad for him. So again, feel is a linking verb. So you need to be careful about whether you're modifying the action or the noun, whether you're modifying the verb or the noun here. So when you say I feel badly for him, that's using an adverb, so you're modifying the verb feel. If you feel badly, that's implying, that would mean that you like numb, like you can't feel anything. Literally, you can't feel someone touching you. That's what I feel badly means. But if you say I feel bad, bad is an adjective, so it's now modifying the pronoun I instead of the verb feel. So it's modifying my overall emotional state. And so the correct version there is I feel bad for him. You need the adjective, not the adverb. If there's any questions, then please let me know. Otherwise, there is one short exception that I need to clarify. Good versus well when it comes to health. So for whatever reason, there is an exception. When we're talking about health, well acts as an adjective, whereas we normally think of it as an adverb. So for example, I do not feel well enough to play, or she does not look well. That's not there, well is acting as an adjective to modify she, not looking. It's not like she can't see well. It's that her overall state of health is not good. But notice that that contradicts the rule that we've already established. So just know that when it comes to health, oftentimes this rule is reversed, and well acts as an adjective. Also, so adjectives and adverbs should be placed as close as possible to the words they modify. This is an overarching rule in general. Any word that modifies another word should, whenever possible, be put as close to the word it's modifying. That's just a general grammatical rule. But it's particularly important with adjectives and adverbs. So, for example, the Alps stretch French across eastern France, Switzerland, and Italy. So that doesn't even make sense the way that it's written, and that's because the modifier is inappropriately placed. So it's the French Alps. It's the Alps that are French, and that's just a colloquial name for them. The French Alps aren't only in France, as this sentence is saying, but that's just their name that they've come to be known by. So the French Alps stretch across eastern France, Switzerland, and Italy. So we want that adjective of French to be as close as possible before the word Alps in order to appropriately modify that. The third sentence, a viola is a string instrument, wooden, that is slightly larger than a violin and has the same strings as a cello. So notice that adjective wooden needs to come before in that adjective listing of wooden string instrument. If you haven't watched my video on commas, I addressed that rule. Remember that I didn't include it here because we did go through it with the rules of commas. But when we have two adjectives next to each other, if we can interchange the adjectives, if you can switch them around, then you do use commas. If you cannot switch them around, then you do not use commas. So here, it wouldn't make sense if you said a string wooden instrument, because the string instrument is most essential to the identification of the object. Wooden is an auxiliary characteristic. It's a secondary characteristic describing the instrument. So you cannot switch them around. You wouldn't say that this is a string wooden instrument. You would say that this is a wooden string instrument. So because you cannot switch them around, there's no comma there. So I just wanted to point that out. But that word wooden needs to definitely be first. And then the last example, the Feast of Seven Fishes is a traditionally Italian-American menu served on Christmas Eve. Versus the Feast of Seven Fishes is an Italian-American menu traditionally served. So here it's whether is the Feast of Seven Fishes, is that traditionally Italian-American? No, it's not. It's the meal itself is traditionally served on a particular date, but it's not traditionally a certain culture. It is Italian-American. So we need that modifier of traditionally to be as close as possible to the verb that it's modifying, which is served. If you have any questions, then please let me know. Otherwise, let's take a look at practice set A. So I'm going to give you 1.5 minutes per question. So that's about 7-8 minutes. I'm going to round up to 8. So I'd like you to correct any errors involving adjectives and adverbs in the following 5 sentences. So I'll keep track of the time in the upper right-hand corner and update it per minute. But otherwise, you may begin. Okay, so let's talk about these 5 questions. So number 1, my right arm is my strongest arm. So right now that adjective is in the superlative degree. We can only use the superlative when we're comparing 2 or more items. Excuse me, when we're comparing more than 2 items. You only have 2 arms, right? Most people only have 2 arms. So you shouldn't use strongest, you should use stronger, the comparative form. So my right arm is my stronger arm. For number 2, place the glass on the table gentle. So that word gentle, is that modifying table? Is that modifying the noun glass, the noun table, or is it modifying the verb place? So it's modifying the verb place because it's describing how somebody should place the glass on the table. So we need an adverb, not an adjective. That has a ly ending, so that should be gently. Place the glass on the table gently. For number 3, we had 2 problems in number 3. My essay was written so bad that I don't expect a well grade. So my essay was written so badly, we're modifying the verb written because it describes how it was written. So we need an adverb, badly. My essay was written so badly that I don't expect. Now this word well is supposed to be modifying a noun, so we actually need an adjective here. So we're going to say good. My essay was written so badly that I don't expect a good grade. And number 4, do you like shrimp or lobster best? So how many things are you comparing? You're comparing 2 things, one thing to another. You're comparing shrimp to lobster. So we need the comparative form, better. Do you like shrimp or lobster better? And number 5, he looks well for being trapped on an island so long. So be careful about linking verbs here. If we say he looks well for being trapped on an island so long, that means that his sight is good. We're saying that, oh, well, he still has all of his complete sight capacity or seeing capacity. Which isn't what we're trying to imply. We're trying to imply his overall appearance, physical appearance. So we need he looks with the adjective good to modify the overall physical appearance of the pronoun he, not the adverb well that would be modifying the verb look. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, let's look at set B. I'll give you 8 minutes, and then we'll review. Okay, so number one, do you feel good? So remember the exception with health. Well acts as an adjective when we're talking about somebody's health. So do you feel well? Let me actually use the different color here. So do you feel well? Number two, so number two and number three directly contrast with each other, and I think that these are really good examples of how just changing one word, changing an adjective to an adverb, or changing a preposition can totally change the meaning of a sentence. So number two, the man in the orange jumpsuit looked suspiciously to her. Or, the man in the orange jumpsuit looked suspiciously at her. So notice that these are two different meanings, because in the first example, the man in the jumpsuit looks suspiciously to her. So suspiciously is an adverb. We actually are modifying the man in the orange jumpsuit, so we need an adjective here. So this should be suspicious. So the man in the orange jumpsuit looks suspicious to her. So in the second example, in the second sentence, the man in the orange jumpsuit is the suspicious one. The woman is suspicious of the man. But in the third example, the man in the orange jumpsuit looks suspiciously at her. Now it's the man in the orange jumpsuit who is suspicious of the woman, and so he is expressing a suspicious look as he looks at her. It's describing his action of looking, which is suspicious of her. So notice these are two totally different meanings here. In the second example, the man in the orange jumpsuit is the suspicious person. In the third example, it's the woman who's actually implied to be the suspicious person. So number three is actually correct. There's no error there. If you have any questions on that, then please let me know. Number four, that cake is the sweeter of all the desserts served. So even though we don't express how many there are, when we have a phrase like of all of them, or like all the ships in the sea, all the dreams in heaven, so whatever phrase you want to come up with, when we have all of the, it's implied to be more than two. So you need to have the superlative form here, sweetest. Number five, he runs so quick that I couldn't get a well picture. So this is just adverb, adjective mix-up. When he runs so quick, we're describing how he's running. So that's an adverb or needs an adverb. So that's quickly. He runs so quickly that I couldn't get a good picture. We need an adjective, not an adverb, to describe picture. Let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, let's look at practice set C. I'll give you 8 minutes and then we'll review. Okay, so number one, say that politer, please. So we need an adverb here because we're modifying the verb say. It's in a command form, but that's okay. We're still modifying the verb, the action to say. So, and we're comparing two things. We're comparing, and it's kind of, this is kind of tricky because it's implied what we're comparing. What we're comparing how you're talking now to how I would like you to talk in the future. So this needs to be in the comparative form. Say that more politely, please. Well, we wouldn't change please. So more politely. Number two, the bug flies so fastly that I could barely see it as it went by. So remember, fastly is not a word. Fast is an irregular adverb where it doesn't have the ly ending. So fast can act as an adjective and an adverb, and it doesn't have an ly ending. So that the bug flies so fast that I could barely see it as it went by. Number three, he should be the carefulest of them all. So here we're talking about, we need an adverb because we're modifying the verb to be. We're modifying him being in the state of being careful. So he should be, and we're also talking about this in the superlative form because it's of all the people, he needs to be the most careful. So he should be the most careful of them all. The most makes it superlative. So he should be the most careful of them all. 4, she answered the honestly questions. So we really mean we're describing how she's asking the questions, but the adverb needs to come after the noun questions for this to make sense. So she answered the questions honestly. And 5, is spring, summer, fall, or winter your favoritist season? So favorite is another irregular adverb adjective form. So we're comparing 4 things to each other. So this is most favorite. Is spring, summer, fall, or winter your most favorite season? If you have any questions, then please let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to speed it up a little bit, just considering time. I want to make sure that we get through all of the practice sets. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes. Please look at practice set D, and then we'll review. Okay, so for number 1, the fence looks sturdily. So if the fence looks sturdily, sturdily is an adverb. It's modifying the verb to look. So that means the fence has eyes and it's looking in a very rigid way. That's of course not what we're saying. We want the face looks sturdy. Number 2, which is worst? A bee sting or a jellyfish sting? So worst is a superlative form that you can only use that when you're comparing more than 2 items. Here we're comparing one thing, a bee sting, to one other thing, a jellyfish sting. So we want worse with an E, not worst with a T. Number 3, this model creates replicas more precise. So we're modifying the verb creates because it's answering the question, how does this model create? And it creates these replicas more precisely with an ly. Number 4, the roses in the garden smell sweetly. So if the roses smell sweetly, that's implying that the roses have noses, remember, and that they're like kind of wafting politely into the air. That's of course not what we're talking about. We're talking about their overall aroma. So we need an adjective, sweet. The roses in the garden smell sweet. And 5, we kind of need to do 2 things here because there's 2 ambiguities going on. The earth rotates the sun in a more elliptical path. Okay, so first of all, the earth doesn't rotate the sun. Like, the earth is not the reason that the sun rotates, right? And the earth and the sun isn't necessarily rotating. The earth is rotating around the sun. So we need to insert a preposition here, around. So the earth rotates around the sun in an elliptical path. So we just want the adjective elliptical, not the adverb more. That's not even an adverb. It's kind of halfway in between because we have the more, but then we don't have like elliptically. We just still have elliptical, but we just need the simple adjective elliptical. So the earth rotates around the sun in an elliptical path. So that means an elliptical path is like not a circle, but like an oval. If you have any questions, then please let me know. Otherwise, let's take a look at set E. I'll give you 5 minutes and then we'll review. Okay, so number 1, the lemon tasted bitterly. So if the lemon tasted bitterly, that means that the lemon has a mouth and tasted something in like in a nasty way, like you had a bitter attitude. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the lemon itself having a bitter taste. So we want the adjective bitter, not the adverb bitterly. So the lemon tasted bitter. 2, you make bagels so good. So we're modifying the action of making. So we want the adverb well. You make bagels so well. 3, new electric cars operate quieter than older their models. So we have 2 things going on actually. Should have underlined that too. So new electric cars operate more quietly because we want the adverb modifying the verb operate, and then it needs to be in the comparative form because we're comparing one thing to another. New electric cars to old electric cars. And then also we want the correct order of modification here. New electric cars operate more quietly than their older models. So you need to switch the order of older and their around. Their older models. Number 4, his hearing is well after the operation. So his hearing is good. We really need an adjective good, but then also we're comparing 2 different time periods. So it needs to not only be an adjective, but it needs to be an adjective in the comparative form. So that's the irregular form better. His hearing is better after the operation. And then 5, he hears good nowadays. So he hears, we need an adverb. We're modifying the verb, the action to hear. So he hears well nowadays. If you have any questions, then please let me know. Otherwise, let's take a look at this last practice set, and this will take us up to the end of class today. So I'll give you 5 minutes. Please look at practice set F. Okay, last set here. So number 1, that distance is furthest than the other route we took. So we're comparing two things to each other, the first route and the second route, and then we're also talking about a physical distance. So we need to make sure that we're using the right diction. Remember that further with an U is for conceptual progression or conceptual displacement, whereas further with an A is actual physical distance. Here we're talking about physical distance, and we are comparing just two things with each other, so we need the comparative form, farther. So that distance is farther than the other route we took. Number 2, I think I look well in my new jacket. So if you look well in your new jacket, that means that you think your jacket is making your sight better, or your vision is improved because you've put on your new jacket, which doesn't make sense. So I think I look good in my new jacket. Number 3, her new car looks similarly to my old one. So if her car looks similarly to my old one, that means that her car has eyes and is looking in a similar fashion at my old one, at my old car. And that's obviously not what we're doing here. We want the adjective rather than the adverb similarly. We need the adjective similar. Her new car looks similar to my old one. Number 4, to swim good, you have to put in the time to practice. So we're modifying the verb swim, so we need the adverb well. And lastly, number 5, my left ear is my best ear. So you have two ears, so you're comparing your left ear to your right ear. So we need the comparative, not the superlative form. So my left ear is my better ear. If you have any questions, then please let me know either in the live chat feed or in the comment section below. But otherwise, Dr. Tot, do you want to say goodbye to everybody? You had a very good class. Come on, Dr. Tot, you want to say goodbye? Come on, you can do it. Come on. Good boy. Can you say bye? Can you say bye? That's sticking your tongue out. Can you say bye? Oh, that's almost there. We'll go for that. Thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful night, and I'll talk to you all tomorrow.